It's coming up June 9th through 11th, right here on YourTV, the Niagara-on-the-Lake Pickleball Classic. John Hindle of the host club is here to tell us more. And John, why don't we begin with a little bit of a pickleball primer, as I like to call it. So
Excellent.
You brought in some equipment, and I noticed that you have two very different, do I call it a pickleball?
Yes.
And this particular one is an outdoor ball, you said.
Correct. If you notice the difference between that ball and this ball, the holes are smaller, and that means that it's less susceptible to the wind when you're playing outdoors.
Right.
Wind and sun are your biggest enemy. When you're playing indoors, we have removed those two obstacles, and so the balls have larger holes. Certainly, any beginner needs to recognize that there are different balls, so they buy the correct one.
Now, this particular tournament is all done indoors. You've got two arenas in Niagara-on-the-Lake, the Meridian Credit Union Arena and Virgil Centennial Arena.
Yes.
How many courts on each side?
There are 6 courts in both of those arenas, and we selected to go indoors to avoid any weather contamination. There's a lot of organization that goes in, and it's a shame if all that organization get wasted by a rainy day.
That's great solution. Will all 12 courts be running at the same time in the early stages?
12 courts will be active both Saturday and Sunday from 8 in the morning, Saturday through till probably 6 in the evening. And on Sunday, we hope to have the players out by 2 o'clock so they can travel home.
Let's look at the rackets before we get back to the tournament. You've brought 2 different rackets here.
I brought 2 rackets just to show, and certainly to help a beginner. The size of the racket is controlled by the industry.
Right.
And the sport, so it's a fixed surface area. But you can see that these have different shapes.
This one's a little bit wider.
Right, and this is for the average recreational player. And it's wider because their skill level is lower. As you improve, the manufacturers have changed to a variety of shapes and sizes for your selection. This one's a little longer because I play it, and at my age I have a harder time getting those low balls.
Right, helps you to scoop
Yes.
the low balls down.
But if you overlay them, you'll see that they've cut a little bit off the edges
Right.
in order to keep the same surface area.
Surface area.
Right.
Excellent.
So what we'd recommend in picking a paddle, it's a paddle, not a racket, is to go into the store and hold it in your hand. That's most important, that they feels good.
Typically, that starter racket, how much would it cost someone?
I would say you could start at $65 and head up to $400. We don't recommend those big expensive ones as a beginner. You start early. And the rackets do wear out. So start with an inexpensive one. And then if you love the sport and you stay in it, you may want to upgrade.
I think a lot of people, when they ask what pickleball is, they can't wrap their head around the fact that it's a solid racket. They're not used to that. But it's really, that's sort of like a table tennis racket in a way.
The sport itself evolved from both table tennis and other racket sports. So yes, the hard surfaces come from table tennis. The size of the paddle was made smaller, so it's easier to learn the sport, rather than squash and tennis, where the paddle is more distant from your hand, so it's easier to pick up the sport. And the ball is of a different surface because it's hard and it bounces differently than a tennis or a squash.
And it makes for a very fast game. I've tried to play it a few times. I've watched some people playing pickleball, and usually doubles is what I've seen and what I've participated in. It's a very fast game.
It's very fast because the intention of the game was for you to be closer to the net as opposed to baseline rallies. So the players get very close. So between a return and a return, you're absolutely right. The distance is short, and so the pace is very fast.
How many people are competing in this tournament June 9th through 11th?
We have close to 300 players coming from all across North America, coming from as far away as Alaska, California, Florida.
Are there big prizes involved in this?
There are no prizes in pickleball yet. It's an immature sport, growing very quickly. Several professional circuits now have evolved in the United States. There's one starting in Canada. So the prize money will come, and there's certainly a lot of interest from sponsors.
How many volunteers do you have helping out?
We have about 98, let's call it 100 volunteers will be helping out over the 2 days. It takes a lot of care to bring in 300 people and get them on a court, service all their needs, and send them home happy. So hopefully they come back next year.
It's going to be a great event, and we are proud to be carrying it here on YourTV from the Virgil Centennial Sports Park. John, thanks for coming in and giving us some information about the sport and about the tournament.
You're quite welcome, and thank you for participating.